So the live stream is something that I am wrestling and fighting with. Right now it is not so much a software issue, but a hardware issue. So if you see a laptop-looking object flying around the church, don't go after it. It's a lost cause. Tonight, if you have your Bibles, we're in Hebrews 10, verses 24 and 25. Hebrews 10, 24 and 25. We're going to talk about something that is something we all need, that of encouragement. Just kind of starting us off, is encouragement powerful?
Yes.
Why? Resounding yes, but why? Why is encouragement powerful?
Lifts you up.
Lifts you up. When you're down, it lifts you up. Absolutely. What else?
Stir one another to love and good works.
That's what we're learning. That's the verse we're learning about tonight. It does stir us up. It helps us. It encourages us. It gives us strength. It gets us through when we're down and we're out and maybe a little depressed. Encouragement can draw us out of that dark spot. It turns the lights on when it's really, really dark. What are some ways we have been encouraged? What's something that has gone on in your life that you have received encouragement with?
Cards.
Ah, yes. Able to open up the mailbox and get some cards, and regardless of whether it's get well soon, thinking about you, cards are a big encouragement there.
Music.
Music. Oh, yeah.
Just a kind word.
Oh, yeah. Music has the ability to change our attitude completely. How many of y'all have ever cried because of a song? Not because somebody's singing it bad, because somebody's singing it good. But yeah, you can get a truth in a song that just lifts you up. A kind word. A kind word can go a long, long way in brightening your day, in helping you out, in just knowing that somebody's there. So those also are the answers to the next question. How can we encourage others? We write cards. We might sing them a song. Might send somebody a song. Might write them a letter. What else can we do to encourage other people?
Pat on the back.
Give them a pat on the back.
Big hug.
Yeah, big hug. Those are always good. Come along somebody and pray for them. That can be an encouragement. That can be a life-changing encouragement. Sharing a memory. Man, I remember when we went fishing and you did just something good. Telling somebody you appreciate them. Telling how they made an impact in your life. Sharing a Bible verse. There's a lot of different things. When we're talking about encouragement tonight, we're going to learn our EQ. Not our IQ, but our EQ. We're going to find what that is in a little bit. Hebrews 10 verses 24 and 25 comes in one of the most fascinating books of the New Testament. I know, like what it seems like about 40 or 50 years ago, I preached through the book of Hebrews. And Hebrews is a very fascinating book. There's a lot that we don't know about it. For instance, we have no idea who wrote it. And the number of people that are contenders for writing the book of Hebrews is absolutely staggering. It's bigger than any other book of the New Testament, with just various people that they think might have written it. But we don't know exactly who wrote it. We don't even know where the recipients were living or precisely what circumstances called for this epistle. Consequently, there's a lot of mystery that hangs around the book of Hebrews. We know about the people that received it. We know it closely resembles the book of Romans. Romans was written to a Gentile audience. Hebrews was written to a Jewish Christian audience. But the fact is, in the very title itself, the epistle of the Hebrews was written to that. Hebrews. They are Hebrews by birth and Christian by faith. We have a group that grew up having all of the Jewish traditions, the dietary traditions, the keeping of the law, the keeping of the celebrations. They tithed their income. They celebrated feast days. They read the prophets. They kept the Sabbath day holy. They were Jews from the first, but they became Christians by faith. It meant that they had heard and believed the gospel, and they knew Jesus was the coming Messiah. Now they believed all of the Old Testament, but they also believed the New Testament. They had stepped out in faith, and they were a congregation of Christians. And it wasn't an easy step to make. When you're talking about a Jew in the first century following after Christ, it was a big deal. Because when you were stepping out in faith, you were taking a step away from your family, away from your friends, because not so much you stepping out, but they would distance themselves from you. Their faith was on the firing line every day. People were saying you need to renounce Christ and come back to the way that you've always believed. Come back to the life that you once knew. Be a part of this congregation that you knew ever since your birth and fall away from Christ. By the way, that's the Christian life. Wherever we were in our life before knowing Christ, that is what the world is calling us back to. The life before prayer, the life before Christ, the life before walking the narrow way, the life that says sin is fine. The world wants us to stay with them. Go with the flow. Don't rock the boat. Don't spoil the fun. By the way, if you want to pray for our youth, that's a good way to pray. Because if they're going to stand and walk for Jesus Christ, those are the difficulties they will face. Why are you rocking the boat? Why aren't you acting like us? Why aren't you going with the flow? Why aren't you doing everything that we're doing? That is the struggle of our young folks. That is the struggle that we ourselves face. Here's a little note. Spiritual warfare is a daily reality. Spiritual warfare is a daily reality. These Hebrews were ones that each day they openly identified with Christ, and the push was to lapse back to Judaism. Some of them had already done it. Others were thinking about it. It was an easy step to make. Spiritual warfare was a daily reality. Many of them had become casualties. Against that backdrop, we have Hebrews 10, verses 24 and 25. The Word of God says this, "And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near." Notice the writer indicates 3 places where we can have that word, let us. In fact, if you go into, I think it's the New International Reader's Version, Holman Christian Standard Bible, there's a couple of places that actually do that. 3 places. The first is in verse 24. It says, "Let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works." Notice that word consider. That word consider means to fix the mind on. It's the idea of radar locking onto an object. It's the idea of focusing on something in order to produce a strategy for obtaining it. Many times we see this within our young folks. Sometimes we see it within our men. You got a problem in the house. You got something, you got a task you've got to do. My grandfather, one of the things he would do for a hosiery mill, there was a hosiery mill that needed a piece of wire bent in a very specific manner. He had to have two wires to go out, and it would fit into a very particular machine. And this particular machine, you hook the wires up, and this particular wire could take a particular voltage, and it would heat up really hot. But it was bent in such a way that in the machine, what they would use it for is to actually cut nylon hosiery, that fabric. And it would make it so it wouldn't fray. It would melt it, cut it, and they could just push it through really fast. And you could only use it for so long before the thing gunked up. They had to throw it out. My grandfather would basically hand twist these things. And he just, he'd do it. He was basically retired at that point, so he would just do it in his spare time and bring over a box, they'd pay it for him, and go make some more. I remember him in the basement looking at a piece of wood with some wire on it and some nails on it. He was trying to figure out how to almost automatically do this, just to have something. He fixated on that. I don't know how long. He was locked in. He was contemplating it. He was focused on it. That's the idea of being. That's what's being spoken of here. Of considering it. We're to strategize. We're to strategize, and it says to stir one another up, to stir each other on to love and good deeds. Notice this, stir means to deliberately provoke. It means to deliberately provoke. When you think about those things, stirring meaning deliberately provoke, does a phrase come to mind that uses the word stir? Great minds think alike there. That's exactly what it's talking about in that context, to deliberately provoke. When somebody stirs up trouble, what do they usually do? I didn't say stir up a fight, but yeah, I mean, you talk trash on somebody, you provoke someone with some words. That's stirring up trouble. When Paul is, or whoever the author of this is, when he's talking about stirring up, he's talking about provoking something. And it's interesting, this word, everywhere else in the New Testament, it talks about it in a negative form, like stirring up trouble. This is the one time when it is in the positive sense. We are to stir up, to find a strategy which will enable us to deliberately provoke one another to love and good deeds. Second, the writer says this, verse 25, not neglecting to meet together. That's the other place for that word. Let us not neglect to meet together. This was a great temptation. In fact, it's still a great temptation to say, you know what? Rather than meeting together, I'm going to go and do my own thing. I'm just going to, I'm not going to make it to church. I'm not going to make it Wednesday night. I'm not going to make it to Sunday school. I'm not going to make it. And it's so easy to fall away. Aren't bad habits easy to have? I can name like umpteen bad habits that are easy. Anybody got a bad habit that they'd love to break, but it's just so much fun to do? I'll give you one. Eating junk food. That's a bad habit, isn't it? How many of y'all love doing? I mean, really, I can open up a bag of Doritos. Man, I can open up a bag of Doritos. Shutting is the problem. Open it's easy. Shutting that thing's hard. Bad habits are very easy to slip into. So what does the writer say? He says, let us together, let's stir each other up, and let us not neglect to meet together. Finally, he says this, but encouraging one another, that third place, but let us encourage one another. Notice this, to encourage means to inspire, to continue on a chosen course, to impart courage or boldness. Encourage means to inspire, to continue on a chosen course, to impart courage or boldness. You encourage someone when you take courage and put it into them. The Greek word translated encourage has the idea of coming to the aid or assistance of someone else. Imagine a weary traveler, and they've got a heavy burden on their back. They might have their luggage. They might have a load that they have brought in from the field. All of this is on his shoulders, and his head is low. His shoulders are stooped. His knees are wobbly. His feet are barely moving. Each step is agony, and he staggers and begins to fall. You can see he's never going to make it. So what do? You come and take that burden. Whatever it is they're carrying, you place it on yourself. You come alongside, you lift the load, you place it on your own, and then you put your arm around them and say, it's all right, I'll help you make it. I saw a video of a marathon going on, and there were twin brothers that were running it. And one of the brothers was close to the end, probably like as far as here to the end of the driveway. And they were, focusing in. But you could tell he was dehydrated, he was exhausted. He was going about ready to fall out. And he was running by the table trying to get water, and he couldn't hold it. And you were going to see him fall. And then right behind him, you see his double. Different number, dressed the same, running up, and he comes up behind him, and he puts his arm, and he holds his brother up. And together, they're running, and they make it to the finish line. Even though this other brother, you can tell, he falls out after that. His brother is like, at the end of it, he just kind of like is putting him on the ground because he's got nothing left. But his brother came alongside of him and encouraged him. That is what is so important in this passage. And what is wanted in the Christian life are a few good encouragers. Encouragement is fundamental to the Christian faith. It is fundamental to the Christian faith. Because you know what? In our life, in every Christian's life, we will all face hard times. As we go through this journey of what we call life, we all desperately need encouragement. We think about the hardships that we faced during COVID. We think about the hardships we're going to face as the political craziness is going to be happening in the next couple of months. I'm not looking forward to that. I don't know how much it would cost to have all political ads just banned from everything I watch, but boy, I'd be willing to pay it. We think about the difficulties that come in the days in which we face. Do you know what we need? We need encouragement. We need individuals that will lift us up and help us through. I've talked often about when I was in college, and Allison and I were in college together. Allison had a group of friends that were loud, that were boisterous, that were in all manner, shape, and form crazy. And they welcomed me in. I don't know because they thought I was crazy as them, but I tell you what, every lunch, every dinner we were together, you got encouragement. If you were down, they lifted you up. If you were struggling, they'd come alongside of you. They'd pray for you. And I think about how different college would be without that. Wednesdays are an amazing opportunity for us to encourage one another. It's an amazing opportunity to kind of look in and say, hey, how you doing? Are you suffering any? And to be able to lift up. I love it when I'm able to be in the fellowship hall here and you're able to hear laughter. Because at least something good is going on. Somebody's told a good joke or a good story or something crazy has happened. And it lifts other people's spirits. We think of the struggles that these first century Christians were going through. The sheer pressure it was. And the sheer pressure was go and leave it all. And what did God prescribe? Encouragement. Now, truth be told, here's one of the dangers that we have. One of the dangers that we have is getting into the ruts where we become people that don't encourage anyone. Some of y'all might have heard the story of a man who entered a very strict monastery. It was so strict that you took this vow of silence that you only were able to speak 2 words every 5 years. Man went in, 5 years passed. He came up to the head priest there. He spoke his 2 words. Food bad. 5 years later, he goes up. His superior heard his 2 words. Bed hard. 5 more years passed. He goes to his superior once again. What was his 2 words? I quit. The superior looked at him. Says, that doesn't surprise me. All you've done is complain since you got here. Let's be honest. We know people like that. It could be they win the, what is it up to now? $900 and some odd million lottery, and they'd complain about something. Yeah, but my ticket got a little frayed. Ticket's worth almost $1 billion. Don't you complain about it? We have to be ones that encouragement is part of our very being, part of the very fabric of who we are. We live in an angry and a trying time. We look at social media, and social media can be a war zone. If you say something somebody doesn't like, you will get torn down 15 different ways. We lose our temper, question motives, slander, spread rumors. We use the language that God gave us to lift each other up, to tear each other down. We might be saying, well, I'm fighting fire with fire, I'm trying to help somebody, but listen, good motives do not excuse sinful behavior. Good motives do not excuse sinful behavior. Sometimes we've got to confront sin. And we've got to be truthful. And sometimes the truth does hurt. You know what? Sometimes we can use our words as clubs that hurt others. Realize the power that encouragement has. Listen to some of these things that very famous people have said. Mark Twain said this: I can live for a week off one good compliment. I can live for a week off one good compliment. Isn't that true? Somebody just says something good about the sweet tea you made, and you just feel good. Or, you wash your car, and they go, wow, that thing is looking nice. You did a great job. It just carries you through. There's something within that lifts your spirit. William James, the father of modern psychology, said this: the deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. George Adams said this: encouragement is the oxygen of the soul. I mean, that's a good one. But I love the Japanese proverb says. It says this: one kind word can warm 3 winter months. That's a good one. Here's the thing. You probably read these words at some point in time. If you treat a man as he is, he will stay as he is. But if you treat him as if he were what he ought to become and could be, he will become that bigger and better man. People tend to become what we think them to be. People tend to become what we think them to be. If we have a child in school and all of our words bring them down, well, you just can't do anything. You just don't study at all. You don't do this. You're never going to amount to much. That child won't be a valedictorian. But if we lift someone up, saying you can do it. It's interesting. You think about a ball game. What kind of a coach would it be if he said, no, you can't do that. God, don't take that three-pointer. You can't make it. Coaches are meant to push a team to be better. We as Christians are to push and encourage one another to be better, to be more Christ-like. Notice the last part of this verse. Hebrews 10 in verse 25. But encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. Notice the word day is capitalized. The translators capitalize the word day with a purpose. Because we understand this to be the day of the Lord. That there's coming a day when Jesus is coming back. And we look forward to that day. Amen? Oh, come on, man. Y'all ain't even happy Jesus coming back. Amen. There you go. We think about it. That day when we ain't got to worry about anything anymore. When Jesus comes back and he sets all things right. We understand that before that, there will be unrest in the world. There will be wars and rumors of wars. There will be battles. There will be things going on. But we're to watch for his return. We're to encourage one another. We already know these readers were sorely tempted to turn back to their own ways of life as battles rage around them. The Bible told these Christians, encourage one another. Jesus, yes, is coming. He's not far off. You can do it. As spiritual opposition rises, mutual encouragement is absolutely essential. As spiritual opposition rises, mutual encouragement is absolutely essential. I didn't quite understand this for a long time. My grandfather had a little black book, and in it, this was something that he actually took to Korea when he was in the Air Force. And in this book, he had written down the names of friends that he had in that book. Friends that he had in the military. And he had their numbers, he had like kind of where they were, their last known address. And he hadn't contacted a lot of them in a long while. And I remember way back when he said, hey, can you look up on the internet, can you try to find these people's phone numbers, maybe where they live and things of that nature? And I was like, well, I can try to do that. And lo and behold, I got the phone number of somebody he hadn't talked to in decades. And I said, Papa, this is most likely, this is the number. This said, this is the hometown. It's the same. It seems to be the same road and all that. It should be about right. Lo and behold, my grandfather picked up the phone and just beep, 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 beep. I'm like, all right, this is all right. And lo and behold, he reached the guy he was talking to. He needed to talk to. And he started talking to him. So much so that I was just like, okay, you're going to be at this a while. I went back upstairs. We were in the basement. The fact of the matter is they had a connection far greater than any I had in college, than any I had in high school. They had gone through something that was far different, and they gave encouragement. And they had a bond that was vastly different than anything that I had ever experienced. They had experienced opposition that was greatly different than anything that I had faced. They knew the value of that bond, of that connection. And so should we in our own lives, in our Christian life, in our church life. Notice the writer here mentions two areas for encouragement in verse 24. Love and good works or deeds. Love moves in the area of attitude, while good deeds move in the area of action. We are to encourage people in positive ways of thinking and in positive ways of living. When we go through life, those are the two big things that we're discouraged in. In fact, I find myself a lot of times when people are down and out and depressed and crying and going through really bad things, going with things of the mind and the heart, getting people to be able to think positively, that is a rough thing. But it's absolutely essential, because if I can win this battle, the other things are good. That's the call we all have, to encourage one another. Not only to think good, but to do good. Love will help us not become angry. And good deeds will help us not to give up. How many of y'all have been angry at the circumstances you've had in your life? We've all been upset with something in our lives. Love helps us through that. Good deeds help us to have a good attitude. That's what encouragement is all about. So I want to do an EQ test. An IQ test, that idea of the intelligence equivalent test. The EQ is the encouragement quotient. And I found these and I copied them from somebody. And I loved them because they made me feel real uncomfortable. These are, I'm just going to read them, but you got to answer them in your own heart. Give yourself a point if you say honestly yes to them. Do my words, number one, of encouragement outweigh my words of criticism? Do my words of encouragement outweigh my words of criticism? You had $1 for every word of encouragement, and you had a bill for $1 for every word of criticism. Would you be in the red or in the black at the end of the day? Am I uplifting to be around? Am I uplifting to be around? Are you one of those people that people just want to be around you because when they leave, they just feel good? They were like, man, that's a great guy to be around, or a great lady to be around. Do words of praise come easily to me? Do words of praise come easily to me? Does it not matter how bad something is, you're going to look at that and go, yeah, you know what? It's all good. There was a story told of a preacher's wife that really was just positive. Somebody said encouraging things, just didn't matter what. And this particular pastor got moved to a church that had a horrible choir. Couldn't sing. Couldn't hold a tune in a bucket. Disorganized, all that good stuff. One day she was in church and somebody wanted to hear, all right, let's see if this lady can have something good to say. And the choir got up and she said, my, but aren't they standing good today? Do words of praise come easily to me? Number 4, would those who know me best consider me an encouraging person? You don't get to be the judge. Everybody else that's around you, the people that know you best, that are around you the most, would they say you're an encouraging person? Number 5, do I pass along good news and swallow the gossip? Oh, that steps on toes, doesn't it? Do I pass along good news and swallow the gossip? Gas is about a penny cheaper. I'm going to stop, not talk about all the stuff that I heard about so-and-so. Would I rather give praise or receive praise? Number 6. Would I rather give praise or receive praise? It's nice receiving praise. Nothing wrong with wanting to receive it, but is your tendency to say, you know what, I want to lift up other people? Number 7, do I focus on the positive qualities of other people? Do I focus on the positive qualities of other people? When you look at somebody, are you looking to bring them down? Man, look at this bad thing. Look at this bad thing. Look at this bad thing. Or do you focus on the good qualities? Can you think of someone who needs encouragement right now? That's a good question, isn't it? Right now, do you have that person you can think, man, they need some encouragement? Number 9, do I pray for the difficult people in my life? Do you attack them? Do you ridicule them? Do you slander them? Or do you pray for the difficult people in your life? Number 10, have I been diligent to encourage those closest to me, my family, my students, my co-workers, my close friends? Monday night at the funeral home at Clements, Allison and Grayson and I got there 5:30, 5:45-ish, and just got to talking with Bruce and Ray. And talking with Bruce, and Bruce introduced me to, it was one of the managers he had. I cannot remember his name, and I can't remember exactly who it was. Supervisor, something to that effect. And it was amazing. This particular supervisor had actually driven all the way from Charlotte, where he moved, to come and see Bruce and just to give him some encouragement. And I got to talking with him. And this was one of those people, he'd be 10 out of 10 on this. He wanted to know, oh, how are you? Oh, that is great. I am so glad that you're there. I'm so glad that you're preaching. Oh, it's such an encouragement. Just overflowing with. He just met me. That is what we strive to do. By the way, if you're not a perfect 10, it's all right. Very few people are. But you know what we do? Whatever number you're at, try to get another number above it. If you're a 6, try to be a 7. If you're a 7, try to be an 8. Try to gain and get to that point in time where you can honestly say, hey, I'm 10 out of 10 here. One of the good prayers we can have sometimes, if you want to help and become a little bit more encouraging, a lot of times the prayer has to be, Lord, help me to know when to keep my mouth shut. Isn't that true? Sometimes we just open it up and go, oh, I didn't want that to come out. The ugly thing you're about to say, don't. The critical comment you're about to make, don't. The foolish joke, the snide remark you're about to tell, don't. You'll be glad you didn't when the day is done. It is a powerful thing when we encourage. Here's one of the other truths. We are often better at encouraging those we hardly know than those that we speak to every day. We think of our children, and a lot of times we put them down. But the stranger will pick up. We yell or we intimidate, and we bring somebody down, but somebody we don't know, we will help pick up. I thought this was very interesting. Henrietta Mears, a very, very interesting lady, she wrote a book called What the Bible is All About, which, by the way, if anybody wants to have like a really good handbook on what the Bible is all about, I've got a copy or two in my office. I'd be happy to lend that out. She wrote a great book that really has helped disciple other people because it goes through the Bible chapter by chapter, section by section, and it just kind of tells what all it's about. But she said one of the most amazing things. She served as director of Christian education at the Hollywood Presbyterian Church. God gave her a powerful insight into human nature. These are her words. Whenever I met a new person, I imagined them wearing a sign across their chest which reads, "My name is blank. Please help me feel important." My name is blank. Please help me feel important. How would our world change if we looked at everybody in that manner? Because let's face it, it is a jungle out there. Let me give 3 simple suggestions, and I'll be done. First, make sure you start each day by saying an encouraging word to each member of your family. That can start the day off right. We don't need to start our days with days. How many of y'all have ever started a day where it's more grunting than it is words? No coffee yet.
I don't
Start off.
I don't know why, but that makes me think about that Andy Griffith show where the husband and wife couldn't get along, and Andy made them say, "Morning, honey. Morning, dear." And then they were really nice to each other, but then they were really ugly to everybody else.
That is a good, yes. Sometimes it just takes the little things, though. Just be nice to everybody else, too. But a lot of times we get up, we're like, we don't hardly do anything. Start your day off well with words of encouragement. Because, listen, isn't it easy to start your day off wrong, and that just derails the whole thing for hours on end?
My advice to that is get a dog, because then you can be happy with the dog first thing in the morning, and then you're happy all day.
Don't talk to my daughter. Say the word of encouragement to each member of your family. Say, before you say a word of criticism, say a prayer for the person you are criticizing. Put the brakes on. Before you say a word of criticism, say a prayer for the person you're criticizing. If we criticize without praying, we run the risk of speaking in anger. A lot of times what we need is that pause to stop us from saying something we shouldn't. Third, when you feel the slightest urge to encourage someone, go ahead and do it. When you feel the slightest urge to encourage someone, just go ahead and do it. The reason is obvious. By doing it on the spur of the moment, we do it with joy and enthusiasm. But also, we get into good habits of doing it. Think about this. How many of y'all have ever jumped off the high dive before? Nobody. We know how to swim. We need to have some lessons. Whenever anybody jumps off the high dive, it's usually that first time that's scary, isn't it? It's like, I'm up here and it's scary and it's down there and I don't want to do it. Is the second time as scary? Maybe. Third time, fourth time. I remember Grace, years and years ago, we had friends that had pool parties. And it was hilarious. You go see these kids up on the high dive. You could tell who it was their first time and who it was that had the 10th time. The first time would be like taking forever to climb up it, take even longer to get out there, and then you'd do like 15 minutes just looking, finally would jump off. The kids that had been there 5, 10, 15 times, they'd be like, no, going up there, and they would just boom right off of there. They got used to it. That's what we need to get used to. We need to be getting used to the encouragement so that it is simply second nature. Notice this. Encouragement is not something that perishes in the using. The way we get more is to use what we've got. By helping others, we help ourselves. By strengthening others, we are strengthening. By lifting someone else's load, your load becomes lighter. It is a blessing to be an encourager. And Christians must be great encouragers. I'm going to end with this story. The story is told of a second grade boy who was trying out for a part in the school play. When the day came for the auditions, his mother took him to school and waited for him to come out. She was nervous because she knew he couldn't sing, couldn't act, couldn't dance, couldn't memorize very well. She was surprised when he came out after 45 minutes with a big smile on his face. How did it go, honey? It was great, Mom. Guess what? I have been chosen to clap and cheer. In truth, that can be said of all Christians. We have been chosen by God to clap and cheer for each other. Friends, we need it. Every church member, doesn't matter just with Mars Hill, but every church member everywhere, every person needs it. And it is a powerful, powerful thing. So my hope is we would go out and encourage others. Questions, comments, observations?
Thank you.
I got that on camera. All right, let's bow in a word of prayer. Father, thank you so much for your word. Thank you for the encouragement you give us and the call you've given us to go out and lift up others. And I pray that you'd help us to do that. We live in a world that is down and out, and Lord, you have given us the ability to lift others up, and I pray that we would do so with our words, with our prayers, with our smiles, with our hugs, with all that you have given to us to be an encouragement to others. Go with us now, Lord. I pray that you would allow us to have safety in our journeys. I pray that you would bless the choir as they go forth and as they practice. Lord, let us do all of these things for your glory and for your honor. For it's in your name we pray. Amen. Thank y'all so much.